program that's going to be big into development and definitely selling that development is North Carolina. Bill Belichick. Of course, it's been over a week now that he's had this position here with the Tar Heels, and they've had a very busy week in the transfer portal. We mentioned a few days ago as he signed his first player in the portal with Christo Kelly from Holy Cross. So we spoke about that on the page earlier this week. If you have not checked out that video, you can find it on our group chat sports page there. But we'll go down the list of names here as there's about 7 players we're about to talk about here. One thing that I see in common, again, we'll get into the specifics with each one here in just a second, but for the most part, NFL body types, you're not going to see with some of them a ton of production at their previous stops. But you understand with GM Michael Lombardi, with Bill Belichick, with the support staff that he's bringing in there around him, it's going to be a certain body type at each position. You're going to look for versatility. You're going to look for size, strength, length, all that. But that's what we see with a lot of the names that we're about to talk about here.
Yeah, you're not seeing a lot of highly rated transfers. The transfer portal rating system is a little, it's a developing product. You are seeing guys that were highly rated in high school in a lot of cases, big body types, high level body type, SEC. So Belichick obviously is trusting his development ability to get the most out of these guys and taking the body types instead of getting, the premium 4-star, 5-star transfers everybody wants, which, by the way, he's probably going to try to get those guys too. There was a report linking him to John Mateer saying that it was really North Carolina that finished second to Oklahoma with John Mateer, and that Belichick had Brady and Gronk and guys like that trying to sell Mateer on North Carolina. So that was an interesting development. But here's what Belichick told Pat McAfee before we get into the players. He said, "We're selling the program. Quite honestly, we have a lot of players and agents coming to us saying they want to be part of the program. Is there a spot for us? A lot of the agents representing players in the transfer portal are ones that we dealt with in the National Football League. A lot of those relationships are carrying over into college football." So that was interesting take that people are coming to them and they kind of know some of the players already from being in the pros. But let's start with the offensive line, Pete. Miles McVey, Alabama, offensive tackle, 6'6", 350, and he cut weight from high school to get down to 350. He's a big boy trying to get a handle on his weight. 4-star originally out of East St. Louis, Illinois, played left and right tackle, took an OV to North Carolina on Thursday, committed on campus, canceled his Syracuse OV. Didn't play a ton at Alabama, played 5 games, logged 94 snaps, but he's young. He's got 3 years of eligibility, and he was a Nick Saban recruit. So be right off the top, the body type there seems like the go with the Miles McVey.
Well, and you see in some of these pictures too, there's some fat to lose around the stomach there, right? If I'm gonna put it as bluntly as possible. But if you're Bill Belichick and that coaching staff, you're saying, man, we can chisel up this guy, and we see a real athlete underneath that, right? Even though, again, there hasn't been so much film on him. But the Saban familiarity, you better believe Belichick picked up the phone and called Nick Saban about him. But again, the body type, like you said, and understanding there's still some development to be had there, right? You're not getting a finished product, which at the offensive line spot, it's very rare you're going to find one that's fully developed in a year or two at the college level.
And you're seeing a similar story with the other tackle. So Chad Lindberg, he's from Rice, but he's not a small school player. He's actually a Georgia signee, former top 140 recruit out of League City, Texas, Clear Creek High School, 6'6", 315, only played 20 games over 4 years at Georgia, so he's older than McVey. He was a teammate of UNC starting center Austin Blasky. Transfers to Rice, plays 7 games at left guard, then finishes the last 4 at left tackle. We'll see if he stays at tackle, goes back into guard. I'm sure that will be a battle, and they're just going to bring bodies in that can play and see who can last. But a similar to me story with McVey. He doesn't have the same body, the weight to lose, but a high-level SEC body type that at one point was evaluated as that kind of player. Hasn't worked out the way he's wanted, but has shown some flashes now when he's got a chance to play at Rice. Goes into the ACC. Less competition, certainly, than he had at Georgia for playing time. He's physically matured. He's older, and he's coming in ready to compete. Another guy that looks the part coming off the bus if you're putting together an offensive line.
Now you got the offensive line, and you got to go get yourself a quarterback. And this one, I think, This is one of those that people, when they saw it, were like, okay, what does Bill Belichick see that maybe others don't? And that's quarterback Ryan Brown, who played at Purdue this last season, has 3 years of eligibility remaining. And the first thing you see with him is that size, 6'4", 215. Had a really crazy game against Illinois in a loss, an overtime loss for Purdue earlier this season. This, by the way, was not a great Purdue team, not a very good Purdue team at all, as their coach Ryan Walters is out now. They've had a ton of guys enter the portal, and Brown was not your full-time starter. Started 2 games for them. But again, what does Bill Belichick see in Ryan Brown?
Yeah, and like you mentioned, I think he was probably watching some highlights of that game against Illinois. 50-49 shootout, 18-26 passes, 297 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 118 yards on the ground. He was the player of the week nationally, the Sean Alexander Award player of the week. This is a player from our neck of the woods here, Venice, Florida, big-time program locally, 6'4", 210. He actually didn't sign out of Venice, even though he was Florida's 8A player of the year. Usually think Florida 8A player of the year, you're going to get a lot of attention, right? That's a pretty big honor in a pretty big state. But he does go on to Milford Prep in New York, which a lot of people go to. It's a well-established prep school. I believe LaShawn McCoy went to Milford. He had a lot of guys going through that program over the years. It is a prep school, doesn't count against your eligibility. Goes there, then goes to Purdue and does his thing in a limited role, but did have 2 starts, played 8 games, 3 seasons of eligibility. I think if you're Bill Belichick, you're saying, we have a young quarterback that we want to play. Excuse me. And want to see what we got. And this is someone who has experience. He can run, he can throw, he can give us something as Brandon Baker develops and potentially becomes North Carolina's quarterback. Sorry, Bryce Baker. I apologize. As Bryce Baker develops, potentially as North Carolina's quarterback of the future, Bryce Baker, top 15 quarterback nationally, basketball player, dual threat guy that can run and throw, smart guy. He's going to come in expecting to play. He did not sign right on signing day. Bill Belichick came in and convinced him to sign after being named the North Carolina coach. So will Bryce Baker just walk into that starting job, or will he have to overcome Ryan Brown? You got competition in the room. That's what you want.
So I'll let you gather your voice there a little bit, D, as I talk about this next pickup here for North Carolina. And it's another guy who kind of has flown under the radar to this point of his college career, and that's Connor Cox, tight end from South Carolina. And this is a guy who only has 1 career reception for 9 yards. It was a touchdown, but a guy out of Jacksonville Bulls, which is one of the best programs in the state. You're looking at the size here, 6'6", almost 245, 250 range. Former star lacrosse player. We understand how Belichick likes to use his tight ends. He can't have enough of them. And again, tight end is one of those tricky positions where it's very tough to look at the box score and say this guy had X, Y, Z sort of impact on the game, because there's so many different ways to utilize them. You're getting a ton of size here. And again, someone else coming from a program in South Carolina where there could be more development on the bone there.
Yeah, former lacrosse player. That is right up Bill Belichick's alley. You're losing John Copenhaver. You're losing Bryson Nesbitt. Jake Johnson's your returning tight end. He's got 2 catches in his career. Tight end's a huge need. Certainly part of what Bill Belichick likes to do. Connor Cox has a size 6'6", 242. More of a lacrosse player in his youth, like we mentioned, so he's still getting going. Actually from Raleigh, North Carolina. Originally went to Cardinal Gibbons High before coming to Jacksonville Bulls, so the local tie there. He went to South Carolina potentially to follow in the footsteps of another Jacksonville Bulls guy in Hayden Hurst, but didn't work out. Now he is at the University of North Carolina, and I think he's going to get a shot to compete.
Now, flipping over to the other side of the ball at defensive tackle, CJ Mims. And this might be the guy out of everyone on the list that maybe doesn't have the NFL sort of body on the hoof. Listed at 6'2", 305, played at East Carolina, was actually committed to Wake Forest. Obviously, their coaching change as Dave Clawson stepped down and Jake Dickert is coming in. But he was essentially a rotational D-line piece for East Carolina, and North Carolina losing 60 linemen. So needing to bring in some bodies here.
No question about it, especially when you look at how Bill Belichick likes to coach. He likes big bodies more so than the speedy, angular pass rushers. He likes guys with some width. 6'2", 305. Shows you how quick the portal moves. Mims was committed to Wake Forest, quickly switches to UNC. North Carolina kid from Vanceboro, North Carolina, West Craven High School. Number 40 player out of high school in the state of North Carolina. So it was a 3-star player. Rotation for ECU the past 2 years. During those 2 years, 37 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. Big knee position. This is not a player that is going to come in and be the superstar. North Carolina's had some superstars that didn't pan out, right? With Keyshawn Silver, Travis Shaw. So this is not that kind of athlete. This is somebody who's coming in to play a role, to be part of the rotation, to be a mature body type, local kid coming home, help you win games.
Now, this next one's very intriguing to me. The Melkart Abujoud, and he's coming over from Delaware. You're looking at the body type with him, 6'5", 260, 265. And I'm going to pull up some of these clips that the size and the strength and the motor, which again, motor is something that is going to translate from one division to the next. It's going to be a step up in competition and athleticism and all sorts of things when you talk about the guys he'll face in the ACC here. But I really like this pickup here for Belichick.
Yeah, arrow pointing up guy, former walk-on. So you just see a lot of late bloomer traits. I agree. He looks the part. I mean, he looks long. He looks explosive. He definitely plays hard. Delaware Blue Hens, alma mater of Joe Flacco. Clearly a step up in competition, but this is a guy who can step up, and make plays as that former walk-on, originally from Newton, New Jersey. 2 years of eligibility. I'm excited to see this. You look at Jared Verse, right? I'm not saying he's Jared Verse, but going from Albany to the ACC ends up being a first-round pick, one of the better young pass rushers in the NFL. So it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And this is a guy, clearly the arrow is trending up. And before we move on to the next player, we got a comment here. UNC selling NFL, which is funny to me because NIL is top priority for most kids. I think they're selling both. They got a big NIL package. They're coming in late, so they haven't had the full game plan to use it. But as I understand, they're throwing money at players. So NIL, I don't think is going to be a problem. That's probably been reported widely, and just logical that Bill Belichick wouldn't take this job unless he had serious NIL assurances. So I think it's both that UNC is selling.
And then, of course, the special teams. Bill Belichick loves his special teams. And it looks like he got his kicker in Adam Samaha coming over from Michigan. He was actually the third stringer at Michigan. He's going to have 3 years of eligibility remaining, but we'll see how this one works out, D.
Yeah, third string kicker at Michigan. The starting kicker, Dominic Sakata, Big Ten kicker of the year. He's coming back, so you're not going to play there. Get an opportunity with Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick loves his specialists, like you said. He studies them. He drafts kickers. So I'm sure he took a look at this film. Starting kicker Noah Burnett jumped in the portal, so you needed a kicker. And this is someone with the leg. He made a 49-yard field goal in the Army All-America All-Star game. So he's a highly recruited guy, number 7 in the country coming out. The leg is there. Now you just got to hone it. I'm sure he's just dying for an opportunity, and he'll get one here in the ACC with UNC.